This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Jodah the Unifier Legendary Humans Matter EDH deck. Thank you for joining us for another installment of the Up and Up series. Today we are updating and upgrading Jodah the Unifier. But before doing so, let me remind you that in the description of this video, you will find links to this build's deck tech, this build's up to the second deck list, as well as this build's video primer series. We have 4 cards going in that are going to accentuate the theme of this deck, and that means we have 4 cards that are coming out. The first new card entering into this legendary build, of course, it was only a matter of time until we got a copy of Excalibur, Sword of Eden. Here we have a legendary equipment. Legendary. There you go. With a mana value of, what is that? 12. Oh, a 12 mana value equipment? What is the purpose of putting that into a deck? Well, this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents we control. Of course, our historic permanents are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So with any number of our legendary permanents out there on our side of the battlefield, we could simply cast this for 0 mana. And what do we do when we get this card onto our side of the battlefield? Well, we give equipped creature +10/+0 and vigilance. It has an equip legendary creature cost of 2 generic mana, so we could basically cast this for 0, equip for 2 to give one of our creatures +10/+0 and vigilance. Jodah will take that every single day of the week and twice on Friday Night Magic. With Excalibur going into the 99 of this build, it is going to replace Dihada, Binder of Wills. Here we had a Planeswalker that would come into play with 5 loyalty counters for 1 and Mardu colors. That's 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black mana. We could +2 Dihada to have up to, okay, let's see this here, to have up to 1 target creature, up to 1 target legendary creature gain vigilance, lifelink, and indestructible until our next turn. Most likely to help protect Dihada and descend it into combat. We could have -3 Dihada to reveal the top 4 cards of our library, and we put any number of legendary cards from among them into our hand, and then the rest into our graveyard. Then we create a treasure token for each card that was put into our graveyard this way. We don't really want to be putting cards into our graveyard haphazardly. This is not a dedicated graveyard recursion build. And yes, this build is focused on legendaries, but not all of our spells are legendary spells, and some of them help us to win the game. So that -3 for Dihada, as it pertains to card advantage, not as strong as it could be. And then finally, the -11, gain control of all non-land permanents until end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste. Well, it was always pretty difficult to get up to the 11 in order to get all of those non-land permanents because, well, Dihada wasn't really any kind of priority to put into play. I felt that having Dihada in hand, she was in hand more than she was in play, and the few times that she was in play, the +2 was just kind of underwhelming. I'm not saying that it was a detriment to the build, but I'm feeling that Excalibur is a little more proactive, and it can be a little more impactful for less mana, of course, than what Dihada was doing. So we're going to swap out the seldomly used Dihada for an equipment that I believe will be used like a tissue at a, I don't know. You fill in your own analogy there. I do think that Excalibur is going to get a lot more play than Dihada did. All right, next card going in, that is Aradesh the Founder, a 1/4 legendary, there you go, human soldier for 2 and 1 white mana. This creature has the enlist mechanic. So as this creature attacks, we may tap non-attacking creature we control without summoning sickness, so it can't be anyone that doesn't have haste or something that we summon this turn. And when we do, we add the power to this. We add the power to this creature's power until end of turn. So pretty much you're getting like a temporary power boost. Whenever a creature we control attacks, if it enlisted a creature this combat, the creature that attacked gains double strike until end of turn. If that creature's power is 4 or greater, we also draw a card. So our humans are going to have a power of 4 or greater. That is definitely for certain. So we're definitely going to get the ability to draw that card, and we can enlist smaller creatures to make the slightly bigger creatures even more, more powerful in combat to ensure that we draw that card, and the double strike will definitely help to protect it in combat so it doesn't die. So what Aradesh is doing here is it's helping to have our legendary humans synergize with each other as a way in which to form combat tricks, and we get the benefit from card advantage. So there's a lot going on by putting Aradesh in, and with that creature going into the 99, it is going to replace Esika, God of the Tree. So there were a couple of reasons Esika was originally added to this deck. Now, she's not a human, so that definitely was a detriment. She did give legendary creatures we control vigilance and the ability to tap to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, which was helpful, but it got to the point where we were able to send our creatures into combat with vigilance, but then are we tapping our creatures to cast spells to leave ourselves a little bit vulnerable on the crackback? With our imposing legendary creatures, we want to make sure we have enough of a stalwart defense so that we weren't really using that ability very often. So then, if we weren't, Jodah, stay up there. If we weren't going to use the Esika side of this card, then we were definitely going to cast the other side, which was the Prismatic Bridge. And this allowed us to, at the beginning of our upkeep, reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a creature or a planeswalker card, and then we put that card right into play. That was the more powerful feature for us in this build. So, in taking out the 5-color enchantment for a creature over there that helps us more with the combat phase, I feel like we're going to get more bang from our buck, particularly because we're not necessarily losing out on the card advantage. As the Prismatic Bridge would put the creature directly onto our side of the battlefield, well, Aradesh will put a card into our hand as long as we meet the combat requirements. There is a 40% reduction on the overall mana cost when we compare the Prismatic Bridge to Aradesh, so I think there's some savings there. We get quicker in doing so, we get more of a combat presence because of the double strike, and we don't lose card advantage. So I think what we're doing here is we're going to go with a less mana intensive spell and still maintain some semblance of card advantage while accelerating and enhancing our overall combat theme. That's what I'm thinking with this swap of Aradesh in and Esika out. All right, card number 3 going into Jodah today. That is Colonel Autumn. Here we have another legendary human soldier. This one's 2/3 for 1 in Orzhov colors. That's 1 white and 1 black. It has lifelink. It has exploit, which means that when Colonel Autumn enters the battlefield, we may sacrifice we may sacrifice a creature, not another creature. It's important to realize we may sacrifice a creature because we can sacrifice Colonel Autumn to itself in order to exploit it. So Colonel Autumn gives other legendary creatures we control exploit. That right there is unbelievably powerful because whenever we exploit a creature, we get to so whenever a creature we control exploits a creature, we put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. So for the sacrifice of one of our legendary creatures, most likely one of our legendary creatures, because we have so many of them in here, yeah, we do have some instances where we could create some tokens that are not legendary, so we could use those as well. So when we have a legendary creature come in, we can exploit one of those creatures, make the team bigger. So what we're looking at here with Colonel Autumn is we're pretty much going to get the ability to exploit, making our team bigger, and then with, just making the army bigger, taller, It's just going to help us in combat, similar to what Aradesh the Founder was doing. Not so much with just identifying one creature to give the double strike, but here it's going to be an overall improvement of the powers and toughness through the dispersal of those +1/+1 counters. So with Colonel Autumn going into the 99, it's going to replace Niambi. Yep, Niambi is coming out. It is time. And the thing about with the major reason why Niambi I felt was very replaceable is she is more reactionary than anything else. Her flash ability, letting her to come into play anytime we can cast an instant, so that we can have a target creature we control to bounce back to our hand. We're always sitting there and we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. I don't want to wait in a deck like this. This deck is sculpted in such a way that it hits the battlefield, and it wants to run. It just wants to start attacking, and just every single resource we have, every card that we have, should be focused on the combat of this deck. I mean, once we get Jodah into play, it's most likely game over if we have enough legendary creatures on our side of the battlefield. With Niambi, it was more reactionary. I'm sitting back and I'm holding back and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. I don't want to do that. So with Colonel Autumn, I feel like we're able to have a bigger board presence where we can just step down on the pedal and go, go, go. Where Niambi is just, well, let's wait and see to protect someone. So that's really the reason why Niambi is out and Colonel Autumn is in. All right, the last card going into the 99 of this Jodah deck today, and that is one of my all-time favorite new cards, baby. Crystal Skull, the Isu Spyglass. Here we have Legendary Artifact. There we go. We're staying in theme, of course. 2 and 2 blue mana. We can turn this bad boy sideways for 1 blue mana. We may look at the top card of our library at any time, and we may play historic lands and cast historic spells from the top of our library. Keeping in mind that our historic spells are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So we have a somewhat overcosted mana rock, but for what we get on top of it, the card advantage it gives us, it basically allows us to have a hand on top of our library. As long as we're not flooded with lands, we can cast those spells right off the top of our library, add to our board without ever considering taking a card out of our hand. Wonderful card to include into this build. And with Isu going in, we have to take out some card that we determined to be a weaker version of the Crystal Skull, and that is going to be Herald's Horn. So here's what I'm thinking here. So we would have humans, of course. That would be the name of the tribe that we would choose, and then we would get 1 generic mana off of the creature's mana values, their mana costs. That is mitigated by the blue mana that we can tap for Crystal Skull. Now, we do lose out on that if we're trying to cast more than 1 human per turn. So yeah, I'll yield to that. So that's definitely going to hurt us overall if we're trying to cast more than 1 human per turn. But we're getting the ability to cast spells right off the top of our library for a deeper potential pool of card advantage than Herald's Horn can give us by maybe revealing a human from the top of our library when we get to our the beginning of our upkeep. Maybe we get to do that, and if we don't, we just have a mana reducer on our side of the battlefield. Isu Spyglass gives us deeper card advantage because we get access to the top of our library as an extension of our hand, and we can tap it for a blue mana. It only costs 1 more mana overall, and the final deciding factor, it's legendary, and Herald's Horn is not. There you have it, MTG BC. Jodah the Unifier. 4 cards going in, 4 cards coming out. Let me know your thoughts about these changes in the comments section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic.